What's up guys, my name's Rnock and today I want to talk about Baptiste map tier lists in Overwatch 2. I haven't seen this done before with this specific hero, so I thought I'd give it a shot. So I'm going to be ranking each of the maps based on how well Baptiste plays in the map and in the combination of how fun it is to play with Baptiste. I'm a GM1 Baptiste specialist, if you want to call it that, so I have thousands of hours on Baptiste and just want to give my take on it. So first things first, let's get into it. Let's get the 2CP maps out of the way. If you never played Overwatch 1, you may not even know what these are. But if you have, you understand why I'm putting these in the D tier. I went back and played these in arcade recently, and they're fun for a couple maps, but quickly realized how poor the map design is on those maps. D tier for 2CP. All right, next I want to talk about payload. So the first one up, I have Gibraltar. So Gibraltar is honestly one of my favorite maps in the game on Baptiste. There's no map with more high ground than Gibraltar. This is an easy S tier. All three checkpoints have strong high ground. The only thing I'll call out is that if you have a team that doesn't attack high ground, and you're the only one going on against another team that does have high ground, it can be tough, but that is a really rare occurrence. Next, I want to talk about King's Row, and I have a hot take here. In Overwatch 1, King's Row was amazing, and in Overwatch 2, I think it's not amazing at all. And the reason for that is because in Overwatch 1, the playstyle of Baptiste was really support the tank. In Overwatch 2, the playstyle for Baptiste and most supports in general is to do damage and get picks while supporting the tank. The problem with that is that King's Row is still a very linear map where you can't really damage or put pressure on the enemy supports, and the main thing you're doing is supporting your own tanks. This is a very tank-centric map, and if your tank's not very good, it's going to be tough. And for that reason, I don't really like this map anymore. Next, we have Shambali. There's a lot of maps like this, like Shambali, where there's lots of high ground, but lots of long sight lines. Now, this map, the plus, it has good high ground. The downside is that there's long sight lines and not a lot of different angles you can take without committing to a flank where you can't heal your team. That said, I'm still going to put it towards the bottom end of B tier because high ground here does increase survivability quite a bit. Next, we have Blizzard Town or Blizzard World. This map is amazing. There's great high ground for both defense and attacking on this map across all 3 points. The second point in particular is such a great point to do damage and heal at the same time. That's the thing. It's not just about the high ground. Is that can you take high ground and also damage and heal at the same time? This is an A tier map, borderline S tier. Next, we have Dorado. So a lot of people don't like this map, but this is an incredible map for Baptiste. All 3 points have a really good high ground for attack and defense. Specifically point B, a lot of heroes struggle attacking point B, but Baptiste doesn't. If your tanks are diving on that high ground on point B, you can jump up with them and support your tanks. And if they're not, you can still jump up in pressure and try and go for picks. This is an A tier map, and on some days it's S tier. Next, we have Route 66. I put this in a similar but slightly better category as Shambali, in a sense that there's lots of good high ground, but there's also lots of long sight lines. The difference between Shambali and Route 66, there's more angles you can take to pressure while also healing at the same time. So this is a B tier map for me, but definitely on the higher end of B tier. So the next point I want to talk about, let's talk about Rialto. So Rialto, I think this is a very similar map to Route 66 and Shambali. There's good high ground, but long sight lines. Similar to Route 66, there are more angles you can take to avoid where the Widow's looking at you, But the third point on this map is atrocious. I think this is similar to Shambali, slightly better, but it's low-end B tier, close to C. All right, the next two here, I'm gonna categorize them together. We got Junkertown and we have Havana. These are sniper maps. If there isn't a Widow or a Hanzo, these maps can be a lot of fun. You can have a lot of presence and impact, but more often than not, you are facing both a Widow and a Hanzo, and what you can do is limited. If you're not doing a lot of damage on his Baptiste, you're not taking advantage of the hero. These two maps are C tier for me. Now, Circuit Royale falls into a similar category, where it's definitely a sniper map. The difference that is with Shambali is that there's more angles that you can take to avoid the sniper sightlines while also doing damage. This, to some people, for Baptiste, this is an A or S tier. I don't think it's quite up there. It's definitely B tier, but I'll put it behind Route 66. All right. The next maps I want to go through are King of the Hill. So I'll just start by saying that no King of the Hill map is really that bad. But the interesting thing about King of the Hill maps is that they all have 3 sections. And at least one section in each of these King of the Hill maps has a point that is meant for brawl, where there's little high ground. And some of them have 2 of them. So that's kind of how I categorize these maps. If they have more maps or section that are supporting high ground, it's a better map. So Busan is an interesting one because the 3 points in this are Mecha Base, Downtown, and Sanctuary. Now Sanctuary, not great on high ground. Downtown has good high ground, but often pressured by Widows. This, and then the last one, Mecha Base, good high ground, but really good Widow sightlines again. This isn't that great of a map for Baptiste, but it's not the worst King of the Hill map. I'm going to say it's a solid B. Next, we have Ilios. This map is probably the best King of the Hill map in the game for Baptiste. We got Runes, which is definitely more of a sniper map. That one can struggle a little bit, but the other 2 points, Well and Lighthouse, have incredible high ground where you can dominate the game, and this is an easy A tier map. Nepal. All right, Nepal, we have Village, Sanctum, and Sanctuary. The thing about this map, and it's a similar thing for some of these other control maps, is that if you don't win the first fight, it is absolutely miserable with Baptiste because you have to really heal to get through that choke point, and you can't do a lot of damage. Nepal is probably the worst one, and I think this is the worst King of the Hill map in the game. I'm gonna put it as a high C. Next, we have Oasis. It falls through the same struggles as Nepal, where if you don't win the first fight, it can be a little bit difficult to get through that first point. That said, when we look at City Center, when we look at we have City Center, we have University, and we have Gardens. Gardens and City Center are really strong to defend on, and University is more of a brawl map. So this is a strong B tier for me. 2 of the maps are pretty good with high ground. It's probably worth calling out that the brawl maps on all of these King of the Hill are good if you're playing brawl. But if you're not, then it can be a struggle to survive on Baptiste. Next, we have Samoa. I think this is a really strong King of the Hill map right now. You have the 3 maps here. You have Volcano, you have Beach, and Downtown. Volcano is the only one that's relatively weak, low high ground and high boot potential into the Volcano. But Beach and Downtown have decent high ground. This is a borderline A tier map right now, but I think once people get the hang of how to play Beach, it won't be as strong anymore. Downtown will always be strong, so I think this will shift to B over the next couple seasons. Lijiang Tower, this is always a fun map, but it's honestly not that great for Baptiste on some of these maps unless you're playing Brawl. We have Gardens, we have Night Market, and we have Control Center. None of those maps have really good high ground. Gardens specifically is like Volcano on Samoa, where did I call? Yeah, it's Samoa. On Samoa, where there's not a lot of high ground, but there's also a lot of boop potential. So this is a B tier for me. Again, no King of the Hill map is that bad. Next, we have Arctic Peninsula. A lot of people don't know what the points are called here. The first one is called Icebreaker. That's the outdoor one with the big ship. This map is definitely a Brawl map. Not much high ground and not a great map for Baptiste. The second map you have is Labs. That's the map where again, there's not a lot of high ground, and it's definitely more of a Brawl map. Not that great for Baptiste. And then the third map, which is sub-level with that big high ground in the middle, that map is one of the best maps for Baptiste in the game. If you get that map, you're going to win it more times than you don't. And the other two maps are not great, but as long as you're playing Brawl, you have a good chance. This is a high B. All right, next we're getting into the hybrid map. So we got start off Eichenwald. So everyone always gets excited about Eichenwald, but for me, it's only exciting once you get past the first point. That first checkpoint can be miserable, and if you can't get through that bridge, there's not a whole lot you can do with Baptiste other than lamp and heal. But once you get to the second point is an amazing map to both attack and defend because you can jump up to high ground, support your tanks or get picks. The third point, not that great either, because just you can't really get an angle without actually exposing yourself to the same angle. At the end of the day, this is a low B tier map for me. I think a lot of people would disagree with that. It's better than Shambali. It's better than Circuit Royale. I'm going to put it right here. Next, we have Hollywood. So this map is actually really good. Sometimes it can be hard to get through that first initial choke point on attack, but once you get through there, there's decent high ground. Second point's insane. You have saloon, bank, and jail. All three buildings are extremely viable to jump on and take damage and heal from. One of the best points in the game for Baptiste. And the third point, while there's some good high ground, there's a lot of cover. This is an A tier map for sure. Next, we have Midtown. I low-key love this map. And it's mostly for point B. But point A and point C are not that bad either. They don't have amazing high ground, but they have just enough. But point B, there's 3 or 4 different areas where you can either escape or attack or defend by jumping up and getting high ground. That alone makes this a borderline A tier map. Borderline S tier. I'm going to put it A tier. I love this map just for second point alone. And the other first and third point aren't bad either. Numbani is a polarizing map. Point A, attacking and defense, is amazing for Baptiste, but the second and third points are not great, and this is such a snowbally map that no one's ever really having fun here. But there's so many games where you can full hold on A that I just have to give it a B. Next, we have Parisio. This map I have a lot of fun on. There's decent high ground across first, second, and third. And the challenge here is that the enemy are almost always possessing the high ground too. So if you don't have teammates that are also supporting you, it can be hard. So this is similar to Gibraltar, where if you're not getting support on the high ground, you're not going to have a good time. But if you are, this is a really strong map. This is borderline A tier. I'm going to put this in A tier. All right, let's get into push maps. We're going to start off with New Queen City, New Queen Street. So this is Toronto. A lot of people don't like this map, but this is one of the best. If not, this is probably the best map in the game for Baptiste. There is so many incredibly good pieces of high ground here. Number one, jumping into that middle train point. The second high ground's on that, jumping on that lip to the midi, and then the third high ground is jumping on that big lip towards spawn, and then you can do the same thing when you're defending. The really good thing about those pieces of high ground is that you can get through the map quickly to either escape or get kills. And so there's so many games with this specific map where I'm getting a lot of solo kills, but I also might only have 0 to 2 deaths. This is an S tier map. I love it. Next, we have Colosseo. I like this map a lot too. Now, the caveat here is that I do not like the neutral point because that is so wide and there's a lack of open ground. But once you're defending the first checkpoint or attacking the first checkpoint across the bridges, that's where Baptiste shines, both on attack and defense. And similar to New Queen Street, it's really easy to stay alive here because you can jump on those bridges to escape. So this is an S. I'm going to say this is an S tier map. Yes. Next, we have Esperanza. This is definitely the biggest of the push maps. And the challenge with push maps in general is that if you are dying as a non-mobile hero, you are spending a lot of time walking. And if you lose a fight, you're probably going to get chased down and killed. So this is a much tougher map. There is good high ground on this map, don't get me wrong. But just for the fact that you'll probably be walking a little bit more on this map, this is a B tier for me. It's, I would say it's a mid B tier map. All right, the last maps I want to talk about is Flashpoint. So in Flashpoint, you have 5 control points in each of these maps. They're all huge maps, and they're beautiful maps. But they were clearly designed by 2 different people. And what is it? New Junk City is the first one I'll talk about. This map's interesting. I don't know what they were thinking with this map. Specifically, why did they remove all of the high ground? All the high ground almost all the high ground you jump on, you just slide right off it. There's a few places. So right off the bat, it's not a good map for Baptiste because of the lack of high ground. And the second thing is that a lot of the control points actually have really tough chokes where you have to heavily support your tanks and pray they get through. And the last thing, similar to push, if you're dying on this map, it's sometimes really hard to group up and recover. This is a C tier map. This is one of those maps where I always get a pit in my stomach when it loads up. And the last map, Suras. So based on the previous Flashpoint map, you probably wouldn't think I like this map, but this map shows the potential of Flashpoint. This is one of the best maps in the game for Baptiste because there are so many unique high grounds you can take across probably 4 of the 5 checkpoints. And honestly, it's not too uncommon where you open up with 1 or 2 picks and win a fight. That happens so often. This is an S tier map and gives me hope for the Flashpoint mode in general. And so you can see I have some clear maps that I really love. Gibraltar, New Queen Street, Colosseo, and Suras. If I only got those maps, would definitely have an 80% win rate. And that's it. That's my Baptiste map tier list based on a combination of how good Baptiste is on the maps in combination with how fun the maps are. If you like this content, please like and subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you in the next one.